Good morning, dear teachers, researchers, knowledge seekers around the globe. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Lisa Sharmin, an associate professor, Department of English, Daffodil International University, Bangladesh, and an ESP researcher. I am here today to share a success story of designing and implementing an English for specific purposes course for the students of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. I'm very privileged and proud to speak in this platform today. As I have only 20 minutes to go, let me start directly with the significance of OBE syllabus in the context of Bangladesh. Bangladesh is now in the process of crucial transition where quality education, MDG, SDG, and 4th IR are some buzzing words. It is transforming into digital Bangladesh. To encounter the transition successfully, we need to equip our students with different set of skills, both hard, soft, and generic. Thus, outcome-based education has become essential to ensure, especially in the current context of Bangladesh. Regarding my understanding of OBE, OBE in real sense can help transforming education and empowering learners, as the practice of OBE is really accountable. In teaching of OBE and implementation of its successful ground, the teachers are accountable to convey some concept he or she is supposed to convey in a very accountable way to the learners. And learners here are taking so much care of having sustainable learning that it's almost accountable learning in its practice. It connects micro level goals to macro level greater objectives in its way. It's a systematic journey from simple to complex. There are short-term goals to be achieved to fulfill the ultimate outcomes. Here, both the top-down and bottom-up approaches to education are followed. The teachers need to aid the students in achieving the goals. And finally, it makes learning measurable and visible. Here, there are the CLOs for each of the courses, which will meet the PLOs of the program. Eventually, the mission of the vision of the university should be met, and the national and global goals should be touched, should be achieved through the practices. Now, regarding ESP, English for specific purposes. ESP, which is a specialized branch of English language teaching, ELT, is an approach to teaching English language to the domain-specific learners of tertiary level. In ESP, all the arrangements are made on the basis of learners' needs, both academic and professional. Intensive needs analysis, tailor-made syllabus, domain-specific materials, innovative teaching techniques are, as well as meticulous evaluation, are some constituent parts that are incorporated under the umbrella of ESP. Here, there is a pictorial analogy. The same size vehicle do not meet the requirements of all 4 users of different needs. In the second image, on the other hand, the needs-based individual planning is a great solution in this respect. ESP in a similar way provides impactful courses for individual group of learners. Convergence between OBE and ESP. As you know, the process of ESP is directly associated with outcome-based teaching. In ESP, learning outcomes are set with the direct reflection of academia-industry collaboration. The teacher assumes the role of researcher in ESP and identifies the nature of knowledge, skills, and attitudes the learners need to be equipped to perform effectively in the academic and future professions. What OBE suggests is to determine the outcomes of educational program before teaching learning. After determining that, The ESP teacher moves on to design syllabus, develop materials, and to teach with a wonderful harmony so that the outcomes can be achieved by the students at the end of the program. Designing an ESP course with the reflection of OBE curriculum. Like OBE, here from the essence of academia, the practitioners of ESP first analyze the needs. It's an intensive process, and in terms of necessities, lacks, and wants, the practitioners identify the needs. The second step is the meticulous formulation of goals and objectives of the program. The tailor-made syllabus, which are designed on the basis of the formulation of goals and objectives. As the next step, the practitioner develops materials from the area of study and profession of the students. The next step is teaching, which is very dynamic in ESP because the single teacher does everything from needs analysis to formulation of goals and objectives to designing syllabus to developing materials. Thus, teaching here is very activity-based and learning-centered, students learning-centered. And finally, the evaluation, while evaluation is held, it helps in two phases. Number one, learners' achievements are evaluated. Once again, the course effectiveness of the course are also evaluated in ESP. Let me focus on the extensive needs analysis, academia industry collaboration. ESP is all about collaborating learners' area of study and profession with English language. For example, by collaborating English and business administration, business English course is designed. By collaborating English and medical science, medical English course is designed. By collaborating English and engineering, English for engineers course is designed. To go up further heights, the teacher visited the probable workplace of the learners to identify the register and discourse of the probable professions of the learners today. Teacher collected the extract by observing how the successful professionals are using English language proficiencies to integrate those into the tailor-made syllabus. At third step, the teacher developed area-specific materials and implemented those by engaging learners through the activities like role-playing, STS sessions, demonstration, presentation sessions, and so on. A glimpse of materials is here to just observe that materials are collected hugely from the area of interest of the learners. As to develop the reading skill of the learners, topic very much related to their profession are taken. Topic like programming languages, robotics, helps them to be curious to know about their English language skills. On the other hand, for developing listening and speaking skill, some role play materials can be taken from their real life scenario as well. And for writing, some sort of materials have been embedded here in the course I taught for the students. Researchers' experience in implementing the tailor-made English course among the students of computer science and engineering. There is the simulation of real-life language used in form of role-playing, mock presentation sessions based on computer science, engineering, and technology-oriented topics, business communication for the computer engineers. There are the project proposal preparation. There are the options from reading and listening exercises related to their probable future workplaces. As finding, 50% participants took part in the semester-wide action research project, where they were taught through outcome-based and tailor-made course designing. The learners showed marked improvement in their listening, speaking, reading, writing proficiency when compared to the students who were taught with English for general purposes materials in the previous batch. Interest and motivations were also high when compared to the previous batch. Students' participation in activities were versatile, spontaneous. Their performance in English language proficiencies was carefree. As the students' reflection, among all, 93% of the students said the syllabus and materials were very much relevant and appropriate. 4% stated these to be relevant and appropriate. 2% opined for ordinary, and 1% reported as not that relevant and appropriate. There is a mapping I have showed so that the harmony of PLOs and CLOs can be visible. Once again, there are some learning outcomes and etc. And finally, the concept accommodated and implemented here can be concluded by saying that ESP is the mirror reflection of OBE in context of English language teaching for the domain specific learners. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, madam. It was a very good session, and I thank you once again for this. I now request all the panelists, if you have any doubts or any questions on this, so please, we'll have 5 minutes for that. You can ask to Lisa, madam. And also, I'll copy questions which has been given in the Vertex, ma'am. Any other panelists, any other professors who can ask doubts on this, which Lisa, madam, has shared her screens. I request any questions from your side if you want to ask her, so you may. And also, I'm seeing in a Vertex where we're getting your questions. So if any questions are there, then obviously I'll be posting you, madam. I request Dr. Lovella, madam, Dr. Amy, madam, and Dr. Leon, madam, to be continue on the topic of learning through research in OBE paradigm, the experience of graduate students using a research-oriented learning approach. So duration will be 20 minutes. Is that okay, madam?
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank
Samit.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very
Welcome.
much. Good day, good evening, good morning, everyone around the world. Thank you so much for having us here tonight. It's evening here in the Philippines, and we wish to share with you our one of our innovations on the use of outcome-based education paradigm to improve learning of our students in the graduate program. So this is about learning through research in OBE paradigm, the experiences of graduate students using a research-oriented learning approach. So the current demands of research productivity in higher education institutions in the Philippines inspired this study in its attempts to develop a research-oriented pedagogical framework that initiates a learning culture at the graduate level. In order to determine its primary pedagogical value, the study seeks to describe the experiences of graduate students in the use of research-oriented learning approach. We call that ROLA. The experiences will examine the learning outcomes that have emerged in this approach, the challenges encountered by the graduate students, and the areas that need to be improved in its implementation. So what is research-oriented learning approach? So we call that in our study as a learning approach that utilizes the research process in learning the course's content. So it can be a full-blown research, or it can be only a part of a research process that can be used as a way to learn the content. But in this study, we are using it as a full-blown research in order to explore and learn a lot about concepts, processes, and procedures in a given content. Baumgartner et al. In 2002 explained that design-based research methods can compose a coherent methodology that bridges theoretical research and educational practice, viewing both the design of an intervention and its specific enactments as objects of research can produce robust explanations.
Dr. Level, sorry to stop you. Madam,
all right.
It's known that your slides are not in full, so please share your slides in a full view. Share your slides in a full view.
Doc Amy, kindly facilitate Sir Samit's request.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you not view it like?
We can view it, but it's too small. I request you to make it big, large.
Okay.
How about now?
I think it's in presenter mode, Dr. Catalan.
You can press
Probably
F5 to make it full view. If you please.
Press
F5.
F5, F5, F5.
F5 can make it full.
Press
F5.
F5. Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. So it doesn't. I'll just end the show. Share screen it again and.
Yeah, please share the screen in a full view and press F5. F5,
Yeah.
F5.
It doesn't. Okay. Wait.
F5 and F5.
Okay, what about now?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's better. All right, so let me again discuss how the conceptualization of this pedagogical framework was done. So we actually follow Baumgartner et al. 2002 explanation on the design-based research methods, that it can compose a coherent methodology that bridges theoretical research and educational practice. So viewing both the design of an intervention and its specific enactments as objects of research can produce robust explanations of innovative practice and provide principles that can be localized for others to apply to new settings. So design-based research, by grounding itself in the needs, constraints, and interactions of local practice, can provide a lens for understanding how theoretical claims about teaching and learning can be transformed in effective learning and educational settings. So we have actually three phases. We started with the conceptualization of the pedagogical framework of the research-oriented learning approach. We tried to explore on the different theoretical underpinnings on educational practices, but most importantly is the embedment or the integration of several important theories that help in learners' empowerment, and basically on the perspective of outcome-based education. So from that phase, we then have the utilization. This is where now we use the designed pedagogical framework. And on the part 3 or in phase 3, we analyze the reflection notes and FGD of the participants of the study so that we can have the feedback how ROLA influence their experience in learning. So we are not focusing on the quantitative investigation of the effects of the utilization of ROLA, but it's more on the experiences of the graduate school students. So there, on a phase 1, we have, these are the elements that we consider important in the process of conceptualizing the research-oriented learning approach. So we have contextualized the learning approach to one of the important foundations of education courses in teacher education, but practically this is for the Master of Education program, that is the socio-cultural foundation of education. This is the content actually where we utilize in the process of learning using the research-oriented learning approach. So we anchor this to educational theories and framework in order to develop our features, the ROLA's features. Then we defined areas of exploration for pedagogical framework development, wherein we investigated the emerging learning outcomes, because of course, when we speak of our content outcomes, there are always set intended learning outcomes for our subject matter. But in this case, we want to further explore on what are the emerging learning outcomes, the challenges and the areas to improve on this approach. So the most important element is the syllabus. This is the learning blueprint, okay, of the design of the learning experience that we want our students to have when we conducted the ROLA. On the second phase, we actually have 2 focus groups. We have only few students. This is a premier university, and we have maximum for our major courses, or even for our foundational courses, we have usually around only 15 students in a section at most, but oftentimes we have an average of 10 to 12 students in a section, but this is a grad school. So in other words, we have only limited number of students there. But what is important, we want to find out the the experiences that we have with the development of the pedagogical design. So the two groups consist of 9 participants and the 10 participants respectively. Free and prior informed consent was obtained from the participants. Grounded in adult learning principle, the intention of the study and the benefit it can provide to graduate education were transparently and carefully discussed with the groups. So this ethical consideration was observed to maintain balance against the dilemma of diminished authority, because the number one question of ethics will be in research aspect will be, well, they are your students, and probably the fact that they know that you are trying a certain pedagogical framework, then probably it will be create a bias, and it will also like a possibility of having a coercive decision on the part of the graduate student. But in that case, it's not, because we believe by adult principle, we believe that co-designing and co-creating is a very important element in continuing education, especially for adult education. Okay, so on phase 3, what we did actually, the data gathered, obtained from the focus group discussion, we call that the FGD, and the reflection notes of the FGD participants were treated using the thematic analysis. The thematic analysis was used to inductively code the transcripts. Noel et al. In 2017 presented the account of thematic analysis that is trustworthy. So in the quantitative study, if we have it as reliability, in our case, we ensure that there is trustworthiness in our codes, in the data that we analyze. So it was based on Lincoln and Guba's 1985 criteria that can match the validity and reliability measure of assessing quantitative studies. Lincoln and Guba's concept of trustworthiness suggested criteria of dependability, credibility, transferability, and confirmability. And so by that, we have triangulation of data codes to valid course learning outputs in a way to ensure these 4 important trustworthiness characteristics. And the intercoding and peer debriefing was actually utilized, really experienced, so that we can ensure that there will be a more trustworthy codes and later on the development of the themes. All right. We would like to share this studies paradigm with you, how we have embedded or how we made use of outcome-based education for power principles as an important element in designing this pedagogical framework and allowing our learners to experience under this pedagogical design. So we have, together with that, we also examine the curriculum content and intended learning outcomes that are really provided by our curricula in the graduate programs. And of course, we consider the adult learning principles, because this will be the very drive of how we design our learning experiences for our graduate students using the approach, the ROLA approach. So if you have noticed, we want to find out their experiences so that we can better understand what are the emerging learning outcomes, the challenges and areas of improvement. But of course, the important factor that would inform us in terms of these learning experiences are the key features intended, okay, intended key features of ROLA, because it has to be set that way as we believe on design-based, as what is emphasized in the design-based research. So it has a self-directed and self-paced element or characteristic, context-based and integrative in a sense, reflective and collaborative by nature, authentic and continuous in performance improvement oriented, because there's always a constant feedbacking on the outcomes or the outputs produced by our students. And what's unique about the feature is that this is where how we anchor the definition of our approach, which we're in content. We use content as a knowledge tool and research as means for learning. Okay. So I think to describe for us the learning experiences, I would like to summarize in general that the result show the achievement of the graduate students in terms of learning skills and research productivity. The challenges of graduate students in using ROLA include difficulty in the utilization of the course content. On the other hand, the FGD codes reveal some limitations of self-directed learning on the content. When ROLA was utilized within a period of time, it's a trimester, implications and recommendations point out the need for integrating varied but equitable learning activities to effectively implement ROLA that could pave the way in developing not only the research skills, but also the comprehensive learning of the course content. And now to give us further on the details of the different themes that were developed, describing the experiences of graduate students in this given research-oriented learning approach, may I have Dr. Amy Catalan, may I request her to explain to us what are these different themes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Divina Gracia. And I would like to greet all our audiences from the different parts of the world. It is my privilege to share with you the findings of our research. So it is common among the two focus groups of this study that the regular classroom mode of learning they had experience in the graduate program in the country centered on lectures, group discussions, and reporting. The regular graduate school classes focus more on delivering the topics required of the course. However, the following themes describe their learning experiences when a research-oriented learning approach was used. So here are the themes which I will discuss one by one. The first theme is problem-centered, contextualized, and integrative learning of the content, pedagogical design as a learning outcome. Here, ROLA builds on the learner's initial learning potential. These qualities serve as foundational characteristics of ROLA as a pedagogical design to enhance learning outcomes. As students go through the process of ROLA's pedagogical design, they attain important content, processes, and skills along the way. ROLA experience revealed more on developing intensive knowledge on one particular sociocultural issue, but extensive in sociocultural content when intentionally and thoroughly studied. As opposed to the lecture mode of instruction in which everything is being discussed, but has less emphasis on significant learning outcomes, ROLA provides the opportunity to successfully learn in a more relevant, contextualized, and integrative manner. The participants experience the demand of ROLA in expanding their understanding of the content knowledge related to a particular issue identified in education. One of the participants narrated that it is actually practical because we studied sociocultural content. There was no need to know everything about it. We only have to at least get the familiarity of it. But since we focused on one particular issue of culture, we have somehow extensive knowledge about that specific sociocultural content. On the contrary, with the lecture mode of instruction, you'll be discussing everything, but at the end of it, you move to the next course with nothing left as you only studied for the sake of answering exams. A very good observation. ROLA experience naturally allows them to contextualize and integrate learning in their field of specialization and their work. It has provided them an opportunity to study, examine, or find means to address the existing issue in school that has become a recurring problem. The second theme is experiential, empowering, and fosters higher order thinking and sense of direction. Students' learning outcomes as a process. ROLA is favorable to the student since the approach is
sorry for the disturbance, ma'am,
student.
Dr. Amy, madam. Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry.
yeah, it's just 5 minutes. No, we have some time limit for this, so I request you to
Okay.
complete within
So
5 minutes.
yes, thank you, Sumit, for reminding me. So for the second one, the students are taking charge of their own learning, and they manifest critical thinking in both the process and their output, which is a research paper. Okay, and they also have a hands-on learning in terms of identifying a pressing phenomenon and finding ways to address it. They also have the opportunity to experience the entire research process. The third theme is ROLA's learning success in diversity, the real-life performance outcome. So there was enhanced appreciation and skills in doing research, and they were able to recognize one strength or their own strength by having clear roles to play within the group. They also had respect for individual differences, culminating in having rich and varied learning experience. And of course, the opportunity to present their papers in conferences. The next theme is role of facilitator makes learning happen. The role of facilitator needs to have that X factor, that affect, which is the driving force in sustaining the core learning phenomenon. The facilitator needs to be empowering and excellent in scaffolding students' skills and content. And of course, this should be guided by OBE principles in developing the total learners and the humanness of the whole person. It also focused on building values and skills, to guide the learners or to achieve the learners' learning outcomes, intended learning outcomes. The next theme is Rolle's limitation, in which students, have the requisite skills, or they possess the requisite skills necessary to complete the course requirement. And of course, they use substantial materials, although there is a demand in time and resources. And this one is also, talking about the challenges for them who are not research inclined. The next one is, of course, managing content of the course in ROLA as main area to improve, which has limited understanding of the content of the foundations of sociocultural education and only has intensive knowledge on one specific area without regard to other content areas. All right, of course, Ms. Thea will explain to us the expanded conceptual framework of ROLA. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catalan. First and foremost, I'd like to greet everyone who is watching via Vertec. Thank you so much for watching our session. Now, let me discuss to you the updated conceptual framework of ROLA. Now, this framework basically stems from the foundational integration of the 4 power principles of outcomes-based education by Spady. It includes clarity of focus, which means that the entirety of what the teachers must do must be solely focused on what the students want to know and what they want to understand. Now, it means that the curriculum design must begin with a clear definition of the targeted outcomes that students are to acquire by the end of the program. Now, what does this include? First, it includes high expectations, which implies that teachers should set high, challenging performance criteria in order to motivate the students to engage deeply in what they are learning. Second, it also includes expanded opportunities, which means the teachers are expected to provide possibilities for all students. Now, this is based on the notion that not all students can learn the same thing in the same way or at the same time. However, it also recognizes that many may attain high levels if students are, given sufficient opportunities. Now, what a student can do as a result of their learning experience is actually what we call as the learning outcome. Learning outcomes are described as certain tasks that students are capable of performing at a certain level of competence in a given setting. Now, if you look at the framework, you can see there that at the concluding part of their educational journey, learners are to be developed holistically according to the principles which are presented on the paradigm part. Now, with the inception of the research-oriented learning approach, the principles that you can see on the screen have been expanded to include elements of self-directed or self-paced learning. You can see it there in the intended key features. It also includes context-based and integrative learning, reflective and collaborative learning, authentic and continuous performance improvement oriented learning, content as a knowledge tool, and research as a means of learning. Moreover, based on the findings of the study, these principles were actually given a thorough treatment that takes into consideration the pedagogical reflections of the actual participants who were able to experience ROLA as a framework. Now, as you can see, the expanded ROLA conceptual framework there incorporates these learning experiences by the students. So as you can see, it has now identified here as a theme where pedagogical design is considered as a learning outcome. Students' learning outcomes are also considered as a process or their pedagogical process. ROLA's learning success in diversity, ROLA facilitator making learning happen, Rolla's limitation and managing content cores in Rolla as main area to improve. The essentials of each element have been discussed in the findings of the study. As a pedagogical design, the initial learning potential of the student is built upon Rolla. Basically, these features form the basis of Rolla as a pedagogical design, which is intended to improve learning outcomes. In here, students acquire significant content, procedures, and abilities as they progress through the instructional framework of Rolla. And as a process, since Rolla is experiential, it is student directed, and it also benefits the student, And with the creation of the research product, which is, basically the research output or the output required by the student, students were actively participating in their own education. And thus in here, students can modify their performance of the course expectations guided by Rolla as their instructional framework. Dr. Catalan, can we move forward the slide? Right, thank you so much. Before we conclude our presentation, we actually would like to share to you some of the tangible results and insights that we were able to gather from the students participants themselves. First, on the tangible results, as you can see there is a poster of students attending a research conference. So in fact, several students who were able to experience Rolla had their papers accepted for a research conference just months following the course, which utilizes Rolla as a framework. Now, according to these students, being graduate students learning under Rolla, they were able to see more the significant role that they play in their community. That is because by being able to present their papers, they were able to translate the results of their study into valuable information that they can make available for public consumption. So for their students, using the framework of Rolla in the graduate school does not only actively allow them to be engaged in their own learning, but that it also strengthens their the role, of the educational institutions in the
Thank you, madam.
community, in their society.
Yeah, thank you for this. The time is so precious for us because we have some other speakers too. So I request other speakers or panelists, if you have any queries to ask to Dylan, Dr. Amy, and Dr. Lavella, I request you to please go ahead with that. I also see Votek. And no questions available till now, but I request the other panelists, if you have any queries, please go through it. Okay. Okay, fine. No questions are available there, and also I hope. Okay, fine, man. Thank you, Dr. Amy, Thialan, and Dr. Lovella. Okay, sir. Hamidur, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. It was really a very wonderful session. I thank you, everybody. Next, I request Hamidur Rahman, sir, to share the slides, and please press F5 as is going to explain on the topic of task-based teaching in the class, which is implementation of 7 focused strategies to develop the English. Okay, I request Hamidur Rahman, sir, to please continue the session.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Hope everybody are hearing this. I mean, is sir's voice audible to everybody? Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sumit, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
This is Mohammad Hamidur Rahman from Bangladesh. A very good afternoon to you all and the other audience who is now present with me. My title is Task-Based Teaching in the Class, Implementation of 7 Focus Strategies to Develop English. This is Hamidur Rahman. I said Professor and Head, Department of English, Bangladesh Army University of Engineering and Technology, Bawet, Bangladesh. Okay, here is the outline of my whole work, presentation, overview, base, on which I have planned my model, objectives of the model, outcomes, label. That means for whom this model is applicable, the 4-corner model that I am going to discuss today mainly, and the 7 basic issues that have been raised while we are in the class. So this is the short outline overview. I would like to share one thing that this has been done keeping Bangladeshi students in my mind. As it happens everywhere, students in Bangladesh also are greatly affected by L1 interference and Bangla articulation that you have noticed in my speech also. But one thing, there is a vast difference of structure of English and Bangla that I'm talking about. For example, English has subject verb extension structure, whereas Bangla has the structure of subject, then object or extension, and then the verb comes at the end of the sentence. So obviously, this is affecting the sentence structure as well as other issues of the students when they write and when they talk. At the same time, they lack English learning environment, and also they lack opportunities for sufficient practice. This model that I'm going to discuss today is supposed to solve all these problems to some extent. The base of the model that I'm going to discuss, FCM, is the constant drilling in the class. Obviously, we need to have some objectives. The objectives are to enable students to use correct English, and at the same time, it will enable them to speak English friendly. And these are the major 2 objectives. Apart from these 2, students will also get equal learning environment, and obviously they will be ensured equal amount of practice in the class. Okay, this is the outcomes of the whole model. After every session of FCM, students will be able to use grammatically correct English that I am talking about frequently, speak English fairly, relate their practice with real life needs, develop fellow feeling, understand their own mistakes, evaluate their own as well as their peers' progress, and at the same time create their own practice session for further development. I have tried to follow Bloom's taxonomy while I have designed this model. Okay. Actually, this model will fit high school students, I must admit, but the scenario of Bangladesh students is not that. So it may also work for intermediate as well as first year university students, because as a teacher of a university and as an experience with an experience of more than 15 years, I have seen that even in the university level, students make their mistakes which they should not do regarding SES or AMISR or things like that. So though basically this model is for high school students, but they can be applied. I mean, this model can be applied for intermediate and freshers of university. So what is this? The outline of the model. There are A, B, C, and D. There are 4 corners, and there is a green zone. I am going to discuss this thing, but first of all, this is the legend of these 4 corners. A will be I, first person. B will be you, to whom the speaker will directly address, second person. C will be third person singular, and D will be third person plural. So these are the 4 corners, and students will be there. A will have 1 student as first speaker. B will have also 1 student as the addressee. C will have another student as third person who will be talked about to B, and the D will have a group of students. So how actually this will work? So let us see that if person is there in the corner A, he will speak to B, and he will also talk about C to B, and he will also talk about D to B. Okay, the green zone is actually for that particular student who has some problems with the speech or also grammatical correctness, because as we'll see later, the teacher will prepare some cards, and the students will come one by one, and they will have a set of words. For example, it may be verb, it may be other words, nouns, or countable nouns or uncountable nouns, all these things. And then if a student fails to accomplish all the tasks correctly, then will be put in the green zone for further correction or further rehearsal or further study. And after the correction or after sufficient development or confidence, will come back to the position A to deliver his work. So once, let us see that he has completed his task, and when I has completely been successful, he will take the position of you, and he will take the position of he or she, and he or she will take the position. They will be in that group, and a student from the group will take the position of I. So this will be a circular process, anti-clockwise circular process. It may be of a particular group or the whole class, depending on the time and the plan of the teacher. So this is the basic network, basic way of work. So green zone will help the weak students or the students who fail to speak fluently or correctly regarding a particular set of words. What can be the set of words? Let us see. This is the first one, and I don't know. I must say that this is not for the English-speaking students or the students where English is second language. Mainly where English is a foreign language, this can be applicable. So I have seen that maximum of my students in our country have this problem with S or yes with the verbs. So this model can help them to overcome this issue. So I think this is a problem with the English language, I should say, because English has tremendously developed from the old and middle English to modern English. It has been easiest through some manual activities, manual works, but still there are some problems with this language. I'm not going to talk about this thing because this is not the session for that, though I have written an article on these issues. So what about, as we have to use S or yes with the verb when the subject is third person singular number. That's why we have to follow it, and we have to do it for the correct English. Okay, so what application one I'm going to discuss. The teacher will prepare some verb cards where there will be some verbs applicable for that particular class or level, and each card will have obviously more than one verb, and on the opposite side of the card there will be all forms of a particular verb, and other forms will be left blank for the students to do after their session is over. So what that particular student will do, he will stand, when he or she stands in the position of I, he will speak, and the interaction will be A, B, C, D in this way, anti-clockwise. The students will draw a card from the teacher on spot, and the student will say, for example, I drink tea. That's an example of the process. Then the speaker will address you, and he'll say you drink tea. Then he'll address the other person, I mean C in the model. You have already seen this one, and you'll see she or he drinks tea, and then he will or she will go to they drink tea. So if it is frequently done, obviously this problem will be eradicated and the student will be confidently using this thing for application in his or her daily life or in his or writing. In the same manner, Amizer was where another problem with the students. So why not you is or why not I is? That's the problem with the other thing, like linguistic problem it maybe. But as we have to use I am, so we have to use I am. So students are clearly missing these things.
Hello.
Where should
So,
they
Hamidur
was
Rahman,
or
sir.
what? Yes.
Sorry for disturbing you, sir, in between. It's just 2 minutes left out for you.
Okay,
Because
I'm
the time is
finishing.
precious.
Because my
Yeah.
basic model has been already discussed. I
Sure.
think these are the examples, so I can be a bit fast, no problem.
Sure.
Sir.
Yes, it's a request.
Similarly, this ABCD model, just have a quick look. This is have and has correction, because this is another issue where some subjects use has and some other subjects use have. So in the same manner, it will be practiced according to the model, and the introduction will be A, B, C, D. Then do not, does not, similar problem. I think I can skip this slide. This is another issue with the students. As I was telling you in the very beginning, Bangla has this thing that when the determiner is plural, the noun should not be. For example, I don't know whether people are answering on or not. For example, onek satrora, I mean many students, is a wrong a Bangla expression. We have to say many student. I mean onek satro. But in English, when I use many, I have to use students. There is no way of using many student or many boy, many girl. So this is a direct L1 interference to the learners of our country. So that's why it is another important issue. And then next, uncountable nouns are there. For example, in Bangla, we can say ekti shangbad. I mean, a news can be correctly expressed in our country in Bangla, but when a student says a news or an information, it is grammatically incorrect in English. That's why we have to use a phrase, a piece of news or a piece of information. So this is a vast difference from between Bangla and English. That's why English learning in these cases becomes a bit tough for the Bangla speakers, because this has L1 has a direct influence on this thing. So this will be drilled in the class. And our last, what is noun, pronoun, antecedent. This is the last slide. And this model can also be some other.
Time is up for you, sir. And
okay,
if you want
I'm
to
just
continue,
finishing just 30 seconds. So
okay, sir.
Just this FCM, I mean, 4-corner model can be used to teach grammatical issues at the same time spoken English. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. It was a very calm and very lenient, I can say. It's a wonderful session. Thank you for the wonderful session for us. And I request to the panelists to please, if you have any queries, please ask him. And I'll also see the vertex once. Do we have any messages over there for this? I don't know. Questions are available here. Any other our speakers who want to ask something else? Okay. Thank you, Hamidur Rahman, sir, for your session.
Most welcome.
Now I request Professor Ilyas Samba to please continue the session of yours.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the InfoBiz, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful moment to be together at this time when we need to really think about education in more serious way. The world we are living in is changing so much. And what the pandemic has brought out is really to make all of us think about our industrial models, our government models, our systems of delivery. It's really very challenging. And it's wonderful that we can have this time to come together and reflect about education and the best things we can do to move it forward. So what I'll be sharing with you now, what I'll be sharing with you now is transforming the classroom and the lecture hall by doing 4 power principles right. So this is something that you are all familiar with, the principles of outcome-based education. But then it's not enough that we just follow this, but what is the right way of doing them? So that's really the key message I would like to deliver and share with you. So we all familiar with the principles of outcome-based education, the 3 principles that students can learn and succeed. This is a statement of faith in humanity, that we believe every human being has the potential. In the last 100 years, our school systems have been very much about selecting the bright students and the not so bright. But what we are saying with outcome-based education is that all human beings are born bright, okay? And so it's the business of education to capacitate them further to unleash the potential that is in each one of them. So these 3 premises of OBE enable us. But I want to focus on the last one, which means controlling the conditions of success. When you go to school, it's the schools really that decide whether you're going to be successful or not. It's your professor, it's your teachers who really decide, right? Or sometimes they put a system in place like examinations that are designed to eliminate some students from the school system. So someone is controlling the conditions of success. And therefore, OBE comparing purposes are 2. The first one is, important one is maximizing and expanding the conditions of success. So if we want to transform our lecture room, our experience of teaching and learning for our students, we really have to be conscious of how do we expand, how do we maximize conditions of success when it requires that we become more patient, more daring, more compassionate, more supportive of the students. That's quite a commitment. But once we do that, we can actually ensure that every student can succeed. The last one is send all learners into the world at graduation fully equipped and empowered to succeed. That's what we want to happen. Now, these 4 principles of outcome-based education, which actually are based on those items, the 3 principles and the comparing purposes, is that we start by thinking about the clarity of focus of culminating outcomes. What is it really that should happen for a person to be considered competent? It's a very important question. We need to define that, because oftentimes when people talk about outcomes, it's a mixture of content outcomes, what they call content outcomes, if I may put it this way, no? And looking at capacitating a person. So if I'm an engineer, how do we expect an engineering person to look like? What should be the qualities that they have? So the articulation of outcomes must be really very, very sharp. Most of the courses I've handled in business management or other courses, they'll go up to about 5 outcomes, at most of 8 outcomes for the entire course. Those are the important things that every graduate, every expert, every profession in the field must be very good at. So that's number 1. And the next point is higher expectations. Because if we have clarity of focus on outcomes, but we do not have higher expectations, we may be creating mediocrity in human learning. Just ensuring that everybody can be happy at the end of the day is really not being kind to humanity. It's dehumanizing. We need to believe in the enormous capability of human beings and give them, praise them, set the standards very high. And because we set standards very high, it is expected that we have expanded opportunity or support system that enable everybody to achieve those expectations. So the last one is design down. So when we design down, it means that we really are aware and conscious of what a graduate should look like, what a person should really be competent in, not in terms of just knowledge or information skills, whatever, but holistically, right? Like if you are going to encounter someone who is considered a medical doctor, a nurse, an engineer, what should you expect from them, that they should be good in this. So once we have all that, we design backwards. How do we capacitate a person to make them that type of human being we want? Those 4 things, they need to be done consistently, systematically, and simultaneously, because if we miss any of those things, it's not going to work. We are going to be frustrated. So when I look now at envisioning education in the outcome-based framework, in outcome-based framework, we really think about impact. You know, when you send a person to school, we need to say what should be their contribution in life? What should be their contribution to the industry, to their own families, the impact? And if we're expecting that impact, what outcomes will capacitate them to be able to achieve those impacts? And the third point is input, process, and outputs. These things, inputs, process, and outputs, are stuff that we do in the school system. Our dream for humanity, which is the future, that's what we mean by impact. Abilities and qualities that we need to be able to shape that future is what we mean by the impact expectation. It's a vision of humanity, it's a vision of our families, of our communities. Outcomes provide the abilities and qualities that can make us to be there. Then the rich, diverse learning experience consists of inputs, process, and outputs of learning. These are the stuff that enable us to build up those abilities and qualities. So with that, we need to be conscious that the IPOs, so to speak, input, process, and outcomes, they need to be considered as flexible resources. So you need to keep focus on outcomes, with learning experiences remain rich, diverse, flexible, differentiated to ensure maximization and full expansion of conditions of success. So everything we do here is really expanding conditions of success. And therefore, content can be differentiated, process, product, have platforms. You know, in the Philippines, for those of you who are communicating from the Philippines, many of schools and universities are considering to have what we call the blended modes of delivery, which means you have students who are participating in class using a remote learning system and those who are in class. Differentiation in the platform, affect, and environment should not actually affect the outcomes because those things can be differentiated. Time and assessment methods cannot be differentiated. Then aligning, aiming at ensuring learning success for all students. What do we really need to do there? In order to transform our learning experience, treat time as a flexible resource, learn, increase the content and activity, lessen or increase the contents and activities because we are sometimes very much overloaded. If we overload our students, they begin to panic in terms of content and learning disappears, becomes about coverage rather than learning. So we need to learn how to increase, decrease, pacing of the learning experience, as well as be prepared to adjust, because what matters at the end of the day is for your students to become competent, to become effective, to become admirable in the world. Therefore, everything else we are doing are simply ways to get them there. So teach students, not subjects. Consider learning modalities and preferences. Allow learners to work with each other. Collaboration is really the thing of today. In my days as a student, many of you may recognize that we needed to defend ourselves in school, make sure that our classmates don't know what we are doing, because in the ranking system, you want to be the #1. Yeah, we were made to compete rather than to collaborate. And that has destroyed many of our colleagues, many of us. We need to increase human capacity by promoting collaboration. And then, of course, welcome a broader contribution coming from the entire society, because contribution, collaboration means it takes a village to educate a child. Everybody can contribute to your classroom. You're not the only person to handle your class, including the grandfathers and mothers who may come by. Tell them to tell stories in your class, whatever course you are teaching. Other experts, bring them in. That's how we are going to transform our classrooms. And now instruction that empower learning. This is the way to think about it. You know, I have formulated this and experimented on it, and I found it really meaningful. Give your students time to process, to learn. give them 40% of your time. Give them 20% to consist of teamwork, 20% whole class, 10% for you as a teacher, and 20% in all. Open it up, show them the outcomes, closing up by reflecting with them so that their learning become knowledge. This is how we transform our classrooms, our lecture halls, and our platforms to make it really a process of transforming our students and making them successful. This is more, the next one is more really like a reminder. It's very tempting for many educators to think about doing lectures and reading stuff and plotting all that. But the truth is, anytime we feel we are in control of content of the process, we are minimizing learning because human beings learn by experience. So experience happens when the students are empowered to take the lead, when they are the ones analyzing, presenting, creating, innovating. That makes them critical thinkers. It makes them creative individuals, communicators, and collaborators. So we need to be sure that our classrooms are more, I'm not talking about abandonment of a student where the teachers will just give homeworks. I'm not talking about that. But I'm thinking about, and I'm talking about encouraging student empowerment. So if they feel not yet ready, we need to be there to step in and support them until they are ready. At the end of the day, they are competent when they can do it. They are incompetent if they can't do it. When it comes to assessment, the same thing follows. Differentiation is really the thing. Any of these approaches to assessment can be used. One student can be working on a project, another one can do group discussion, another one can do practical experience. Outcomes transcend the modalities of assessment. You can use any form of assessment, you can still capture if people are learning or not. There is no reason for us to have one size fits all when it comes to assessment, because life means if I go to the bank, I work with the banker, I should be able to feel the competence of that person. I don't need to give them a quiz. When I go to the hospital and my doctor takes care of me, I should be able to know whether he's competent or incompetent. It's about performance. When you take a cab or a taxi driver, you don't have to give them a quiz. But by experiencing them, you will know how competent they are. Life is about being competent, and assessments must be really about that. And so, friends, my invitation now is really to encourage you to try to do these 4 power principles of outcome-based education in your classrooms, in your lecture halls, and your digital and virtual learning space. Just the virtual learning space really provides us a lot of opportunities where students can learn with your one-on-one support, with collaboration. So it's making the vision of outcome-based education of these 4 principles has become so easy for us to visualize and to make them happen. And so, friends, thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, any question, clarification? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you, sir. It was a very good session, sir. Thank you for your knowledge which has been given to us. And I request other panelists, if you have any questions or inquiries, to please ask to Sampa, sir, and we'll also go for Vertex. Yeah, in Vertex.
Thank you very much.
There are no questions available in Vertex, sir. If anybody, Hamidur Rahman, sir, the PLN, Dr. Lisa, madam, if you have any, Dr. Lavella, madam, if anything, if you want to have a
Yeah, maybe it's not a question, but just an
Okay.
appreciation and affirmation.
Okay.
Professor Dr. Ilya Sampa has been my colleague in IN for OBE, and that was really a great presentation. You
So
have
we need to
there,
have
Dr.
claps here then.
Sampa. Yeah, we have to
I
clap
request
Dr.
everybody please
Sampa.
clap here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we do uphold the same principle, and we are all advocates of 4-power principles, because this is the only way that we can empower everyone, not just our learners, but everyone. And we do believe, whether we are parents, we are professionals, we are whatever who we are always a constant learner. We are always in a learning community, and so we have to keep ourselves being empowered. As to who will empower, then that's, I guess, we're going to, because it's really a big challenge as to who will empower. We can empower ourselves, we can collaborate, we can talk, we can negotiate, we can do all things for the betterment. Okay, so I thank you, Professor Sampa, for that wonderful
Thank you.
sharing to us today.
Yeah. I mean, anybody, sir? Because the
Okay.
session is going to close.
Okay.
Yeah. I have Hamidur Rahman, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful presentation. I must thank Professor Ilyas Champa for that. Actually, he showed a chart where he says teacher 10%. I mean, instruction that empowers learners. Teacher 10%, individual student 40%, team of students 20%, teacher 10% again. My question is it based on any research work, or is it taken from a source, or how is that conclusion drawn? Professor?
Okay, all right. Well, it's based on a number of researches. I think one of the slides that I showed you that has to do with what happens since 1960s that has been researching on. When we lecture to people, much of what we talk about is forgotten by the end of the day, right? So it seems that when we flip, like just let people participate. Like right now, as we interact with one another, we will remember this stuff. Much of what I said, you will forget that. Okay, you will just remember that it was presented. You might remember the characterization. Oh, we liked it. Find something like that. But to go deeper in it, you will not really be able to do that unless we have this kind of exchange. So because of that, it's easy to conclude that the presence of teacher inputs, massive teacher inputs, really block student ability to grow, because we actually prevent them from learning deeper. So the deeper learning is lost. But when we really have more time to let them do more, they'll remember that. I mean, even in my graduate school, postgraduate education, much of what
sorry to interrupt. Actually, okay, I understand. I may agree with this thing. I also appreciate this ratio or percentage. But my question was actually, was it your personal opinion, or is there any research work on this thing, on this issue?
It's research based. Yeah.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. That was a really very wonderful session for by everybody. I really thank all the speakers, Dr. Lovella, Mohammad Hamidur Rahman sir, Professor Ilyas Sampa sir, Dr. Lisa sir, Thea Lan madam, and Dr. Amy. It was such a wonderful session. Starting somewhere we were lagging behind because of timing. So it is once again thankful for everybody for maintaining the perfect timing and for the perfect question and queries. Now I request if anybody is having anything to talk, because we are going to close the session. So if anyone talk to say something else about still the skills and competencies of the students, they can. Dr. Lisa madam was very eager to share her screens.
Yes, actually, I just couldn't listen anything. It was just, I was just guessing the time, and yes, I was very sad.
That
and
was
afterwards,
a good
you said that you could listen at least. Okay,
yes,
I am. You are very much clearly audible to me. I'd like to appreciate Ilyas's session, as I could be able to listen from that. Earlier, I really couldn't listen to the sessions.
Madam, sorry to come in between. Sorry to come in. Madam, sorry to come in between. Professor Ilyas Sampa sir, it has been told that you can move to the next session. I think you have a next session.
Yeah.
Ilyas Sampa sir. So please,
Yes.
if you have a time, you may.
So yes. Okay then. Thank you. I do appreciate just because it was so lively and performance based. Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wish you all the very best. It was a very lively session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you also, Summit. That was a wonderful moderating person. I know you'd been going through a lot since the very beginning because of the many technicalities, but thank you. I wish to leave now for the next session. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you,
Thank you, madam.
Paisan,
Thank
as
you.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Samit.
Samit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
All the
madam. Thank you.
best.
Welcome
All
all,
the best.
and all the best for your future. Thanks.
All the best.
Yes,
Well,
thank
you, sir.
and see you soon. I hope.
See you soon. Everybody, see you soon. And thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.